Hello everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is not important. The name of the channel is Civilized Ghost. So please like, share and subscribe so the ghost don't visit you in your sleep. I'm just joking. Today I'm gonna check out some more nerdrotic, The Death of Star Wars. A Death by Mary Sue-icide. Play on words. Yeah, so let's see. This came out a few days ago, I think.
Ray! Ray! Ray, I never told you Ray! Ray!
If you like these videos, please like. If you like the content, like the video, share, subscribe. You can check the video on his channel, Nerdrotic, on YouTube.
I bypassed the oppressor.
nerdrotic.com.
Disney
That's
had a
not
rough
very
2023 with all of their catastrophic flops, losing billions on streaming, bumbling CEOs, and all the black eyes from the culture war. But there's some good news on the horizon, at least with one of their subsidiaries, because Disney Star Wars is saved. Again. I know we've heard this one before. Star Wars was saved when Disney purchased it from George Lucas, until it wasn't. Star Wars was saved at the end of Mandalorian Season 2 with the appearance of
Until
Luke
it wasn't.
Skywalker until they fired Gina Carano, and it wasn't. Star Wars was saved with Obi-Wan Kenobi until it wasn't.
I still can't believe they fired Gina Carano. Man.
Star Wars was saved with Ahsoka until it wasn't. But
She survived that, by the way. Somebody survived getting stabbed through the stomach of a lightsaber. That shouldn't even be possible. She's dead.
don't get down, you over
Super dead.
942,000 Awakening Wonders and the 40% who haven't subscribed yet, because after 10 years, Lucasfilm has finally cracked the code to Star Wars. This time it's going to be different, because this time Disney Star Wars is going to be saved by a woman. And not just any woman, a female activist documentarian from the Washington Examiner.
I'm not gonna say anything, but you can follow the story on YouTube.
New
And
female
director.
director says it's about time. A woman shapes the Star Wars franchise, and that's an unfortunate picture below that headline. I can hear you now. Hasn't a woman been in charge of Star Wars for over 10 years?
Exactly.
Yes.
That's what
Isn't that
everybody
woman an
says.
activist? Yes, but she's not a female of color activist. Haha, gotcha. And who is this first female of color activist to direct a Star Wars film and shape Star Wars? Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy.
Filmmaker and activist Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy is the only female director to have won 2 Academy Awards by the age of 37. She's also the first woman and the first person of color to direct a Star Wars film.
The question is, who cares?
And that Star Wars film just so happens to be the triumphant return of Rey Palpatine in the new Jedi Order, which should excite
I started
fives
watching
and tens
5
of
years
fans
ago.
out there. And you might rightfully ask, what
To
are
be
the
honest.
qualifications that led Lucasfilm to hire a documentarian to helm a multi-million-dollar Disney Star Wars film?
When you can play the woman card,
You will.
you play the woman card.
Outside of that, as far as her genre experience goes, there's 2 animated features from Pakistan and 2 whole episodes of Miss Marvel. You remember the highly acclaimed show that nobody watched that led into a movie that nobody watched, The Marvels. What could possibly go wrong? Now, before I get too far ahead of myself, let's hear from Sharmeen. Maybe she is a lifelong Star Wars fan. Maybe she'll break down some lore. Maybe she will talk about specific movies, books, comics,
I don't
or
think so.
Disney Plus shows that inspired her.
I don't think
I'm
so.
very thrilled about the project because I think what we are about to create is something very special.
While there's never been anything special about Disney Star Wars other than its inexplicable systematic destruction of the biggest cinematic franchise of all time and the destruction
Star Wars and Disney Star Wars, by the way, are not the same things. Two completely different things. Disney Star Wars is more like fan fiction of the original Star Wars.
of beloved iconic characters through turning the mighty Star Wars into a platform for things like identity politics and intersectional feminism, but maybe she breaks the trend.
And we're in 2024 now, and
Ah,
I think it's about time that we had a woman come
comes at the
forward
world today.
to shape the story
world
in a
living
galaxy far,
today.
far away.
I guess if you don't count Kathleen Kennedy, all the female executives at Lucasfilm, all the women in the Lucasfilm story group, Bryce Dallas Howard, who directed episodes of The Mandalorian, and Deborah Chow, who directed episodes of The Mandalorian and the entire series of Obi-Wan, who, along with a lot of men, have shaped Star Wars into a perfect turd. Sure, except for Patty Jenkins, so technically, Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy is the first female to potentially direct a Star Wars film since the last one was fired. But still, let's give her a chance. Maybe she'll talk about some specifics about what she likes about the story of Star Wars or a favorite character.
An insurmountable.
She wasn't hired to be the director, she was cast to be the director. Based on, there's a list of things they hire people based on in Hollywood.
Sort of, roadblocks, who tackle things, who fight to have their voices heard, who have
That's
inner
not
conflict,
Star Wars.
who are forging the way, who have
It's space
something out
opera,
at
that's
some
what you should be
point, but
saying.
then they come forward and, they try and change the narrative on something, push the needle on something, win a few battles, and eventually create change within themselves and within their communities. And if you strip Star Wars of everything, that's what Star Wars is all about.
No offense, but
No,
it sounds
it's
like
not.
some fucking commie gobbledygook.
Okay, I thought Star Wars was about the rise and fall of Anakin Skywalker, who turns into
Yes.
Darth Vader, and later his
Yes.
son joins with the Rebel Alliance to take on the evil Galactic Empire, leading to the redemption of Anakin Skywalker and the defeat of Emperor Palpatine, a space opera that explores themes like family, heroism, destiny, and the eternal battle of good and evil, and most importantly, it was fun. At least until the Disney trilogy came along and completely dismantled all of it. You know what isn't fun? Activism. But again, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Sharmeen will prioritize storytelling over activism.
I think at the heart of everything, I am a storyteller
All right, that sounds good.
and an activist.
Oh, here we go again.
Here
My
we
body
go.
of work over the last 20 years has been guided by my activism, and every single piece of work that I've ever created has a
It's
piece of
nothing to do with
activism in it.
entertainment.
It could be very overt or it could be covert, but it is there.
This is sci-fi entertainment.
Now, I know the corporate shills are out there trying to
You want
run
to be
with the same old
entertained.
narrative that people have a problem with a woman directing Star Wars, and they even know this. That couldn't be further
not.
from the truth.
It's
What we have
bad
a problem with
storytelling.
is an activist running Star Wars. If a dude was saying this stuff, I'd have a problem with it too. And most of this is old news. We knew she was directing the Rey movie. We knew she was an activist. And the only thing that set off the firestorm on the internet over the last few days was this statement on CNN.
It's about time that we had a woman come forward to shape the story in a galaxy far, far away.
Yes, and it is cringe that she was referring to herself in the third person. And that statement engaged the weaponized autism of the internet, and they started digging up clip after clip, including this one from 8 years ago.
What is the balance of activating a force for change, but also trying to permeate that patriarchy, that power structure? And is that a part of the calculation of your art as well? And what's been the reaction to that?
Oh, absolutely. I like to make men uncomfortable. I enjoy making men uncomfortable.
To be fair, in this video featuring 4 women, Meryl Harvey Weinstein as God Streep, Ava Biased Works Both Ways DuVernay, Jon Stewart, and
filmmaker and activist Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy, the first woman and the first person of color
to direct a Star Wars film.
Was discussing the documentary she made about very bad things happening to women in certain countries, which is noble. It still doesn't make Charmaine qualified to direct a Star Wars film. If Patty Jenkins wasn't qualified, how in the hell is she? Back when the announcement was originally made of
Filmmaker and activist Charmaine Obaid-Chinoy, the first woman and the first person of color to direct a Star Wars film.
At Star Wars Celebration early last year, most of us just rolled our eyes. Yes, it was the most Kathleen Kennedy of Kathleen Kennedy moves. The woman who destroyed Star Wars brought back the female lead of the trilogy that destroyed Star Wars and hired an activist director to make more crappy Star Wars. But I do not blame
Filmmaker and activist Charmaine Obaid-Chinoy, the first woman and the first person of color to direct a Star Wars film.
She just took a job, and whether she's aware or not, she was not hired to be a director, she was cast to be a director. Also, a bunch of Hollywood executives can do their little virtue signaling circle jerk. And yes, to state the obvious, the Raid New Jedi Order film is going to be a catastrophic flop if it comes out. But how could you say that? The movie's not coming out until 2026. Well, aside from the fact that when my dog's crouching to drop a turd, I know he's gonna drop a turd, and we can just ignore the 10 years of solid data we have from the diminishing returns of Disney Star Wars. Let's just go to another Disney subsidiary, Marvel, with the Marvels, who did something very similar. They hired an inexperienced female of color director that they paraded around. Apparently, they didn't give her enough supervision.
Well, The Marvels was shot during COVID. There wasn't as much supervision on the set, so to speak, where we have executives there really looking over what's being done day after day after day.
And it turned out to be the biggest flop in the MCU's history. And the same thing is going to happen here, and it's all down to the one woman who shaped Disney Star Wars, Kathleen Kennedy, a once prolific Academy Award-winning producer who was promoted beyond her ability into the worst studio head in the history of Hollywood. She should be bouncing her little grandchildren on her knee and writing them $12 checks at Christmas, but not making decisions for Star Wars. She's announced more projects than she's actually produced and fired more directors than she's hired. But thanks to the recent firestorm on social media, now we have a lot of new people waking up to this, including some of the political pundits who finally discovered that pop culture is culture and it's important. And the other people that are finally waking up are investors. But by all means, release the Rey movie, directed by Charmaine Obaid-Chinoy, the first female of color to shape Star Wars since the last female of color to shape Star Wars, Deborah Chow, with Obi-Wan, but not before, the first female of LGBTQ plus to shape Star Wars with The Acolyte. You know, former personal Harvey Weinstein assistant Leslie Headland. But there is a lot of good that's come out of this. Yes, Kathleen Kennedy and her ilk divided fandom for years, but with her commitment to failure, they're bringing us back together. And with the release of the Rey movie, I have to agree with the critical drinker, it will launch 1,000 new YouTube careers. So as Disney Star Wars continues to commit Mary Sue-icide against my better judgment and my best interests, I have some unsolicited advice for Disney Star Wars, so listen closely, although I know they won't. It's time to stop. If, in the words of Razorfist, superhero films have entered their fat Elvis phase, then Disney Star Wars has entered the sightings of Elvis well after his death phase. So Disney, if you care at all about the legacy of the franchise that you spent billions on, stick it in the vault, forget about it for a good decade, and maybe revisit it if you have an entire new regime. Disney can't even make Disney anymore. What in the hell makes you think they can make good Star Wars?
They did mess up that whole Snow White thing. And they lost the right to it. They lose the right to Mickey Mouse yet, or is it still upcoming? Not sure. It's still coming out. But pretty sure people are going to be able to make whatever they want with the Mickey Mouse character, because the copyright, the intellectual property rights for that is going to be up. So if you want to make your own Mickey Mouse, you can do that. Okay, that's it for this video. Please like, share, subscribe. All those links can comment down below, and I'll see what else.